Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We see a lot of familiar DEIC faces from past cohorts or current cohorts joining us. So thanks for joining us for the Lunch and Learn this afternoon. This is the second Lunch and Learn in a row where we've been talking about a Virginia grant opportunity, which is just amazing and super exciting, and I think highlights how much great stuff we have going on in the Commonwealth right now. Today we have joining us, we have Glenn Davis from the head of Virginia Energy, and Julianne, who's a deputy director, joining us to talk about the Virginia Power Innovation Program, which is like a first of its kind grant program for Virginia. And the sort of thing like I've been waiting to happen for more than a decade, and they finally got it done, and they've gotten it across the finish line, and it's launched. And they even have even better news than we expected for you all today that has to do with the application deadline. And I see Vince too. Hi, Vince. Yeah, we're really lucky we have the Virginia Energy team joining us to kind of talk through this program. It was something, Glenn started. Glenn and I had a conversation about back in the fall, when the legislature first approved it, but created, let's say, some creative hurdles for his team to sort of work through to get to where we are today. So they pushed through those hurdles, and now they have the program up and running with a couple $1 million that they get to hand out to really great projects. So we're just excited they could join us, excited they could do this informational webinar and answer y'all's questions so that they can get the best applications they can possibly get, and we can get the best projects for Virginia launched out of this program. So Glenn, and Vince and Julianne, thank you for joining us. Glenn, would you like to say a few words and talk a little bit about the program and the process that got us here?
Sure. No, look, Adam, first, I appreciate your help. When we first decided we were going to do this, obviously, you were the first phone call we made. You were gracious to come over and spend a couple of hours with Chelsea and I at the time. It's been a long time coming, a few challenges to get over, but we're excited to be there. One of the biggest challenges was we needed someone to actually kind of start overseeing this. I've kind of had my hands full, and then we talked Julianne to coming over as deputy director of the department. So I don't know if she realized what she got herself into, but she's jumped in with both feet. But it's really exciting. Everyone here already knows the huge opportunities and challenges we have in the Commonwealth related to energy. The energy demand is going up 6% year over year. Just in 2020, we thought it would be 1 to 2%. So when it comes to power generation, we need it. We need it quick. We need innovation around it. Of course, transmission and distribution is just as challenging for us. So I really look forward to seeing what some of the people around the screen here may have as things move forward. But with that, I'll turn it over to Julianne. She's riding herd on this. So if you want to take it away.
Thank you, Glenn. And it's exciting to see the interest in this. And I've been getting emails since we launched it with a variety of questions that I've put out there. But the most exciting thing that I get to tell you all is that we have extended it to the 15th. And that is so that'll give a little bit extra time. And I know there's some relief there. And we are literally just putting that on the website right now. So you're hearing it as it's happening. And most of the questions that I receive are just very basic, like the budget format that it's wanted and so on. But we'll get to questions later. But really, that's it. I think Glenn stated up and teed it up. That is, we're just looking for innovation, and we didn't want to narrow the scope too much and possibly miss out on a great opportunity for the Commonwealth. So with that, we'll go forward. If you wanna go through the application, or however, Adam, if you've got that ready.
Yep. So I will pull it up. Here we go. All right, everybody. So I'm just going to pull up the application. Can you see it?
Yep, we got your screen, Adam.
Cool. All right. Julianne, I will ask you this first question because I know that this tripped a few people up. Okay. First thing people see has to do with the nuclear hub. And I
Yes.
know that you all received questions. Is this only a nuclear program? Because the first thing they see is a paragraph that relates to a nuclear hub.
Yes. So, unfortunately, I did not write that code section. And I decided to go ahead and put the entire code section because we were getting a lot of questions where it looks like both and they're conflating both because they are related, but they are two separate things that are just related. So the innovation grants are really can be a lot more broad than what is stated there. They do not have to be related to the topic stated in point 1. So, but we did, because it is all tied in together into that same program in that same code section, went ahead and put that all out there so you can just reference the full code section. And as I mentioned, we're keeping it pretty wide open because we didn't want to make it so narrow that we were missing a great opportunity or a great idea. And so we're very excited to see the different ideas that you all come up with in order to bring more innovation to the Commonwealth, not just on energy, but also on supply chain and other things like that. Again, that is the old form. So the new form will say September 15th.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the rest is pretty self-explanatory. In fact, this format is borrowed from previous Virginia Energy application, so it might look familiar
Got it.
to some folks.
I had one question for you and Julianne here as Adam was scrolled over the grant amount there, which is that's a wide swath of numbers, right? $10,000 all the way up to $1 million. And so could you maybe help us kind of triangulate or pinpoint the types of projects that you expect in those different funding amounts? Is $10,000 very much planning and some of that initial work, or are you looking for kind of shovels in the ground and hardware investments?
I'm gonna Glenn, because he's chopping at the bit to answer this one, so I'm gonna let him go ahead.
So the answer to your question is yes. So having been an entrepreneur myself, right? I always hated governments coming up with things and creating boxes because I really never thought government people understood what it was like to be an entrepreneur, and sometimes how $10,000 really is the difference between going forward and not going forward with an idea. But also there are very well thought out projects that are already in process that do require a huge amount of infrastructure investment to take to that next level or proof of concept. So what I wanted to do here, and part of it came because I was talking to one entity, and they only need basically $40,000. $40,000 to them moves a huge needle with them on what they can do with some other people around the table. So I didn't want the small businesses and small entrepreneurs that had an idea that they're working on something feel like they had to create a business plan on how we can use $1 million when they weren't there yet. And I wanted to make sure that those ideas could still be included, but I also did not want to miss those ideas that were much further down the road. Let's say, I'll throw an example because people can have a lot of different ideas, which is why we left it so broad. But if you're looking at doing siting for a nuclear project, right? I mean, that's a few $1 million. So this would basically be $1 million gets you probably 1/3 of the cost, 1/4 the cost of doing the NRC siting, right? So so that's why there's such a broad scenarios. We want everyone to feel like if they have a power generation or power innovation idea, somewhere they fit in there with their application.
One wrinkle we wanted to confirm, and Vince kind of, Vince and I emailed about this, but we did want to just reiterate, this is work to be done in Virginia.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
So they could be an out-of-state company, but we're talking about work that benefits Virginia that's happening. There's got to be work in Virginia.
Yes. Correct. And we may ask them to move their company here too, but there's
which also a good idea.
Right.
Which VEDP has great resources for, right? So anyone thinking about there's a good economic development nature here. I think that kind of also speaks to the question of kind of what projects, how do you define innovation? And then we have a question in here from John around, or sorry, from Ethan around that ROI. What are those kind of, what's that impact, and what are either matching funds or community impact? What are some of those ways that y'all are evaluating applications on that ROI side?
So innovation, so I hate to use this example, but it fits in a lot of cases. It's like pornography, you know, when you see it, you know, so because innovation, it doesn't have to be technology innovation, right? So behind the meter power generation, you know, if you're using, let's say, hydrogen or even solar for behind the meter power generation, it's not really innovative technology, but it's innovative to have it behind the meter because a lot of that's not going on now. So it's a very broad, open scenario of what is innovation. And so I would hesitate to tell anyone don't be too tight on that scenario, because we're looking at what already isn't being done. Is it being done? Are you looking to do it in a much more scalable scenario? Is it newer technology? Is it being used differently? It's open there. And then there was one question that popped up in chat. What was that question?
That was
Oh,
on
the
the
match?
match.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I will tell you, these are competitive grants. We have $3 million. We don't have to use all $3 million. We can use all $3 million. The more match, the more competitive it is. It doesn't require a match. I tell you to be competitive. You may want a match, and as much as you can get, you know, the better. So I would say, you know, we were very careful not to put black and white disqualifications in this, but keep in mind it is competitive.
Right. Showing up with some money in hand, you know, shows that this is something that's really, you know, capable of happening, something that you can get across the finish line.
Yeah, and I would add also, Adam, that, you know, cash investment, infrastructure investment, in-kind investment, I would capture all that in a proposal to show your full investment into this. If we award the grant, that'll help you become more competitive as we select these.
Yeah, I would just say I've seen some government grants, federal grants, where there's definitely some gaming going on with like defining in kind and stuff. So I started a company. I'm like all y'all. We know where the loopholes, and so I would be cautious trying to get too cute. But no, 100%. You know, the more that y'all can, other people bring to the table, just makes it a sweeter deal.
Well, do you anticipate? So, like looking at this. Do you anticipate sort of, I guess it seems like there'd be kind of a, you know, you'd select companies and then there'd be some sort of negotiation period, right? Where you're sort of hashing out some kind of like, this is what's anticipated. You know, you'd have a performance agreement. And so you'd be then having a negotiation period afterwards to sort of land on the performance agreement with each grant awardee, to make sure that Virginia Energy is confident and comfortable with their plan for the funds. Do you anticipate like any go, no go type milestones, or is it going to be sort of like once we get an agreement, you know, we sort of we'll expect reporting back on that agreement, but then the dollars will go out the door?
Yeah, I think I understand the question. Basically, it will be customized because depending on what it is that you know, the award is going to, it may look a little different for each one. So it would be customized, but there would be a definitive deadlines and expectations that would be expressed at that time.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Julian's right. You're going to see in some cases the grants may be milestone based, where, I mean, if you tell me in the grant you need money for X, then we're going to wait till you get to be able to do X, and we're going to give you the money, right? So
right.
I think in very few, I don't think you're going to see a case where someone asks for a certain amount of money and we say, here you go, good luck, right? I don't think you're going to see that part. I think it's going to be milestone based, or obviously reporting, you know, as things go through. We want to make sure, if we're going to use taxpayer dollars, that there is some type of return for the taxpayers, whether it's, you know, new stuff in the shelf, or at least tested new technology, whatever the case happens to be. And then there will be the applications come in. There'll be some binders created. A group of us will get together with binders. We'll probably do a quick interview process. We'll decide who's going to get grants, and then we'll negotiate it.
Good. All right, I think so. I've gotten through. See, I'm scrolling through sort of like the application, the basic application information, which I think is pretty straightforward. If somebody has a question about how to describe the full legal name of their company, let us know. But you know, I think you all made it very straightforward in the application itself to sort of fill out, you know, who they are, what the project title is.
I wanted to ask one question on this proposed target area, and I think this goes to a question that Ethan has in the chat on what is that impact area. So okay, so they're doing a project in Virginia. Is that, if they're behind the meter generation, is that specifically just that site that they would want to be telling you guys about? Is it the broader region saying, hey, we're taking a megawatt off of the grid because, you know, grid here, which would allow for more residential homes to be built or whatever. So is there like a regional impact here? Or just kind of, could you talk a little bit more about those geographic bounding components?
Again, that might be, I hate to sound just vague, but that might be project specific, where the more information that you can provide, one, to show that you've done the homework in the background and that you know what the impact will be, if it will be a broader impact, or if it's a project that is a very local specific and you're just talking about that. We don't expect you to necessarily talk about, you know, the entire region, but there should be some positive impact that you can state for within the Commonwealth that conveys, you know, what you anticipate the basically the ROI to be on this project.
Yeah, I mean, the application is a sales pitch, right? So as much as you can identify all the upside potential somewhere in the Commonwealth, I'd suggest that, you know, you have it in the document.
I did want to say, we had a few questions on the, again, I borrowed some of this language from previous ones, and I probably took a few things for granted. The budget, the way it's stated on the budget, there is no budget form or format. It's just, please, you know, provide a budget, a detailed budget, you know, Excel spreadsheet's fine, or an attachment, you know, to the application. It wasn't a particular format for the budget. So I just wanted to clarify that.
On that note, Julianne, I was just thinking about this, of like, some of these projects have already expended money. They've been in planning phase for a long time. Is all of this to be new money allocated versus, say, reimbursement for prior project costs, whether those are engineering costs or site development work, or does it all need to be new stuff moving forward?
Yes, it has to be new. Yes, moving forward.
Looks like we have a couple more. We have a couple of questions around timeline in the chat here. So you've bumped that application date to the 15th. Do you have a timeline beyond that in terms of, you know, kind of bulking and batching everything through, or are you going to keep this, you know, how quickly do you expect awards to be reviewed, made, announced, and then completed even, right? I would assume there's a 12, 18, maybe 24-month horizon on completion of work.
So for the process itself for reviewing applications after the 15th of September, I think everything should be finalized within a month, but we honestly weren't sure what type of response we would get, if we'd get 5 applications, if we get 100. So we're also trying to see what type of response we get, but we will definitely communicate to everyone that's applied, and both also publicly will put out statements as to those deadlines. Once we have a better grasp of how many we're going through and et cetera.
Yeah, we're trying not to do everything that we hate about government. So, you know, take 50 hours to fill this out, and then we'll take 6 months to figure out whether you win, and then we'll take 4 months to negotiate it with you. No, I mean, there's going to be a small group of people reviewing these things. It's going to be a quick process. I'm all about immediate gratification. I'm terrible about wait for the reward. So no, we'll be turning these things around. I would anticipate pretty quick.
Well, that's what entrepreneurs like to hear, Glenn.
Yes.
So get it in, and they'll get it figured out for you as quickly as they can, get the awards negotiated as quickly as they can, and then expect you to have shovels in the ground as quickly as you can.
Yes. No,
Basically.
yeah, that brings up another thing too. We're moving quickly because we want to see something quickly.
Right.
So obviously everything can be on the table, but if you tell me that we're going to fund something and you're expecting to do it in December of 25, it may not make sense for us to spend money today on something a year and a half from now that may come, right? So we, as much as y'all are looking for quick turnarounds, we're looking for those quick turnarounds to start seeing this stuff, funnel through.
Okay. So preference for getting things done quickly, having a plan to get work going, from as soon as Virginia Energy says go.
Right.
Which I think is highly desirable anyway, and especially did legislature set this up? Is this an evergreen fund? Are you anticipating another round next summer, or do they have to approve it again the following year?
So the governor asked for 10 million. The legislature gave us 4. If we don't use now, 1 million has already been used, is being used on some other things.
Right.
If we use all the 3 million, we're going to need new funding. If we don't use all the 3 million, obviously we can do another round with whatever's left over. But if we want to go above the 3 million, that becomes legislative action.
Got it. So everybody, give Glenn amazing projects so that it becomes easier for the legislature to say, "Wow, look at the impact of this program," and the team can have more funding to keep doing this. I think is part of the answer, right?
Yep, and I'll also tell you, so I don't know how many of y'all know VIPC. The VIPC is kind of the investment arm for Virginia. Joe over there is a good friend, obviously, as you'd imagine. He's under Commerce and Trade as well. Him and I have had the conversations. So when these applications come in, he will get a binder of all the applications. Him and I and Julianne will be getting together. And there might be some stacking that we might be able to do where he might be able to bring some money that no one here knows about to the table that we can also utilize to kind of make our pool even bigger. So there's going to be other partners inside of Virginia that we may be bringing to the table on these.
That would be huge.
And also on that note, Glenn, these are state dollars. And if they need a match component, I think everyone just should keep in mind that you can't necessarily use other state dollars for that match. So this goes to a question that Jane had around maybe expanding a little bit on that cost share. What are some of those buckets or uses that money could be could go for? And then just any further thoughts that you have for the audience on that regard.
So we're going through the comments to see where the questions, so I can maybe
Yeah, so Jane specifically, can you expound on cost share? What are acceptable examples?
Okay, so I'll give you some examples. So you don't have to have cost share. Honestly, look, I was an entrepreneur that started a business that took it nationwide that I couldn't get a dime of. It was all out of my pocket and credit cards, right? We all know how this works. So, really great ideas don't always have other people that believe in them. And so you don't have to have cost share, but do keep in mind that's competitive. One thing we do want to have that I firmly believe in, I think all of us entrepreneurs believe in, is you've got to have skin in the game. So unless you got some skin in the game somewhere, it's going to be problematic, right? But there doesn't have to be cost share. And, but also the types of projects. So, it could be something as if someone says, look, if we're trying to get funding from outside entities and we need X, we need $100,000. And if we can put up $20,000, we have an entity to get the other $80,000 from, so we can go pick the technology, right?
Right.
That's great. And so if we're not, all we're doing is helping you bring in more money, right? That's one scenario. We could be funding, testing new technologies, siting. I don't want to take anything off the table, but I would put it this way. We're looking for a wow factor, right? It's something that, I won't say don't suggest studies, but it has to be one hell of a study for us to consider a study. I mean, I hated studies in the General Assembly, so I wouldn't go that route. But I mean, it's got to be something where if you went and told the layperson out there that you were going to go be doing X, they should probably say, hey, that's pretty cool, right? That's what we're
Right.
looking, we want to get something across the finish line. So I would say that it's got to be money that moves the needle. If you're a large company and you've got, millions and millions and millions of dollars, and you want to apply for $50,000, and I know you've got 50,000 sitting in the bank account, I'm probably giving it to that small business, as
Right.
opposed to just subsidizing you when you've already got the money, right? Likewise, I want it to be something new and different. But look, I'm the first person to say I would not suggest anything not be applied, because the whole reason we're here is we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I've been saying. The first year of any program is just understanding what your pool really is, right? It's impossible to know until you actually start getting that pool of applications in to go, oh, well, look at these people over here. Like, I would never have imagined these people over here would find out about this. But I mean, that's what your one is. And then I think, to your point, Glenn, that's what I've been saying to people is, imagine this is state dollars. Imagine you're having to explain this project to a state legislator.
Yes.
Right? If it doesn't impress them, then you got to make it sound impressive. It's got to be the sort of thing that can capture their imagination.
Well, more important than that, it's your neighbor, right? I mean, because ultimately they're all
Right.
tax dollars, and legislators don't get in trouble having to explain to the legislators. We get in trouble having to explain to the taxpayers. So it's got one of those things where if a legislator went to his neighbor and said, "We're using your tax dollars to try this," the answer should be, "That's pretty cool."
Right.
Not there's already 15 of these things in my backyard.
And Glenn, I'll know, in general, our subaward programs, Adam, we keep very broad because we want you, the applicant, to tell us what those innovative ideas are. We did not want to restrict a lot of ideas out of the gate, and this format follows that. So to anybody applying, don't read extra things that you may have learned from applying for federal grants into it. If we're not excluding it, it's not excluded. So don't read too much extra into the language that we provided, which is intended to be very broad.
So, Brian, what else is in the chat?
And that's it.
Yeah, I was just looking through. I mean, just looking from some of the names I know on here, and feel free, folks, if you haven't introduced yourself to the group in the chat, feel free. We know Joe James has tossed in what he's up to, and knowing some of the names here, we have everything from drones to do measurements on high power transmission lines instead of humans hanging out of helicopters. We have agrivoltaic startups. We have nuclear robots on here, critical mineral capture in coal slurry ponds, and micro or nano bubbles. I mean, it's incredible the amount of innovation that I see in just a couple of the names that are on this list here. So folks, feel free to toss your questions in the chat, and also introduce yourself to your other innovators on here.
I will note that last part of that application you were just on. Those additional documents, see, if you'll note, those are prior to award. So you don't necessarily have to have all that done in your application. That's, some people will submit some things to us.
What's prior to award?
Like some of these forms at the end are prior, like if you look, some of these things are like if you don't have your W-9 completed, that can be prior to award. So if you look at the
references.
Language above it, but if you have all that stuff, you can submit it.
We want the business plan. I want your cash flows. I want your balance sheets and profit statements. So here's, I look at this from an entrepreneurial standpoint. I've been in y'all's shoes, right? I mean, I've gone for bank financing. I've gone for grants in my private life. Been out there with the crazy idea that works, but no one else understands it. So here's the thing that Julianne and I and Vince and the secretary all want to make sure. First off, cool ideas are great. Do you have the ability to execute, right? A little bit of a bio. Look, if your profit and loss statement says that, you've only got a little bit of money coming in, that's fine. Because what we're going to do is I'm going to look at that versus what you tell me you're going to be able to do, right? I got to make sure that when we grant an award, I understand the resources that entity has. And sometimes the resources is just an entrepreneur that doesn't sleep but 1 hour a day, right? And I understand that concept. So there are no disqualifiers. I just have to be able to make sure I understand the story we're working with, because I can't afford to put egg on the face of a governor who's on the national stage, right? So we want, so a lot of these things I want in there, because they're going to come. And honestly, if you have a really cool, idea, and you've got kind of a questionable balance sheet and profit statement, we're probably still calling you and saying, let's do an interview, right? Because I mean, the wow factor is more important than anything else. Is that wow factor, and then what happens, and then the conversation becomes okay, let's talk about your ability to actually do this. So that piece, of it comes into play. But did you want to?
Yeah, and we'll to clarify a little bit further. So initially, obviously, with it, it was ending this Friday. We knew we recognized a very compressed timeline initially. So that's why we said, you will need this, but you might not need to submit it by the 30th.
Oh.
We're extending it now to the 15th. So if we went back to you and said, yes, great idea, please send the following information, that would have happened very quickly after the 30th. But now that we're extending it to the 15th, anything that you can have available in that will just help move it forward a lot more quickly. Because if you are one of the finalists that will be calling for an interview, we will be asking for this very quickly. So I would, and I can clarify that in the updated form.
Yeah, let's put that on.
Yeah.
What may be helpful too, I'm just hoping the stuff are in chat, so we can go kind of rapid fire really quick on some of these things I don't know if we've answered yet. I'm sorry, I'm not connecting those dots. Can you okay, I've answered that one. Okay, cost is not required. Private investment is in the game. Studies may not be preferred, but you're right, studies are not excluded. If there are multiple engineered devices, can you have multiple applications? Of course. If you've got 50 ideas, send me 50 applications. The more the merrier. And just because you get one award doesn't mean you won't get two. Capitalism at its best. The best ones, if they all come from one person, God bless you. Are other documents required with the application? Would love to see the stuff Julianne just talked about. Sub-award process for applications with multiple project partners. Vince, I think, talked about that. Specific areas of focus. No specific area. Power generation, energy. I mean, if it has to do with energy, look, it's safety. I mean, I think it was mentioned before, the idea of using drones. I love that concept. I have one to the extent I haven't crashed it yet. It's a good thing. So yeah, this really goes. The reason why I love running this, putting this out there, is because we actually get to put money out there for things that people have ideas on that we don't know about, right? It's what I always get frustrated with when I was just an entrepreneur. And so my whole goal was, when we have control of things in government, is to, understand what it was like to be on that side. Tight timeline, gathering commitment letters from partners would be challenging. Okay to name, yes. Okay to name potential partners. You can say we're lining up these partners. If we like what you put out there, we may say, great, we want to interview on this date, and when can you have the commitment letters for us? So yes, the application could be, here's what we've got today, here's what we're working on, we expect to have it in time. Like I said, I don't know if there's a disqualifier, because I've always hated the idea of saying, no, I don't want to see something, right? I mean, I've got plenty of time to read documents. There's 24 hours in a day. Julianne and I and Vince can give up. Well, we can give up part of a weekend, or a whole weekend. But we can. But yeah, we have plenty of time to read documents. So, anyone's got an idea, it's definitely worth reading.
Okay, just to rehash, there's a 10-page limit. Now, does the 10-page limit include the additional information?
You could. Okay. No, so you can have the addendum. So the 10-page limit. Look, I got ADHD up the wazoo. Anything more than 10 pages, I've never written a 10-page document without increasing my margins. So I would say the 10 pages is, if you can explain to me and make it wow in 10 pages, so I want to talk to you, we got a problem, right?
Right.
But no, the other stuff, feel free. If you've got 20 letters of recommendation, feel free to include all those. Obviously, financials take more pages, so no, those all can be the addendums. Those don't have to be part of the 10 pages.
All right. So
as a reviewer of many, if you can't capture us in 10 pages, you're probably not going to capture us. And also, it's kind of like, we need to see a concept that can be hashed out in the interviews also. So if you feel like you want to add more, just put it in the attachment with the details. And it may or may not be read, depending on how lengthy it is. So.
Could you talk a little bit more about that interview process? Is that going to be just the Department of Energy team? Is that going to have outside reviewers on it? Federal usually goes like outside for the review process, but it sounds like you guys are trying to keep this quick and nimble inside the organization.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't need government people telling me what makes a good business idea. So, you know, when the government realized how to spell entrepreneur was a scary period back in the day. No, it's going to be Vince, Julianne, myself, and the secretary. That's the review committee. It'll be, what it's going to be is, if we like an idea, we're going to want to call and have a conversation. Those conversations, it's going to be kind of different for each one. You know, what the questions we have on that particular project? Do we have questions about the financials? Some entities we may want to have more questions about your ability to perform. Other ones that may be clear, but we have, you know, questions about timeframes. So it's just a clarity of discussion, I think, at that point.
That makes sense. I think that's a great explanation. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so I can actually see the chat for once.
Yeah, on the sub-award process, it was asked, I mean, we have a pretty easy sub-award process here. It's not going to be cumbersome like dealing with federal grants. If you need multiple sub-awards based on your proposals, we can figure out a way to do it. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. We can resolve your issues on that.
All right, Braden, was there anything else I missed? Chat was.
I'm
Okay.
looking back through. I don't think there are too many unanswered ones currently.
Amazing. All right.
And we've got
Well-
these, there's the email that's on the application. Feel free to use, continue to use that for questions. And, we'll get to that as soon as possible. Based on the conversation today, I'm going to make a few tweaks to the application. I'll repost it just with clarifying, what we've clarified here. So thank you for that input and feedback.
Did we post a direct link, Braden?
Yeah, I'll repost it again. Here's the link, everybody, for the information down at the very bottom of this page. There's a download link. So grab that, make sure to save it to your downloads or save it to your project folder.
Yep.
I'll also put the shameless plug out for the DEIC. Anyone who wants to talk through their application with Adam and myself, feel free to email us directly, adam@dominnovation.com, braden@dominnovation.com. We're here to help you guys. I know quick turnaround on this, but as that entrepreneurship resource center in the state for this type of thing, we are more than happy to work with you to get things looking good before you submit it. So use us as a resource, and otherwise, it looks like we've gotten a bunch of the questions answered today. So thank you all so much.
Thank you all for the time.
Yeah, thank you to DEIC for setting this up. It's really helpful. So.
Thanks, y'all. Thanks for joining us. We're so excited for you to knock this out of the park. So both the people here who are going to apply and the Virginia Energy team, they're going to make this happen. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank y'all.
All right, everybody have a good one.